Topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
And yes, born to be alive. You're listening to Until Now with Rosie Pica on W4CY Radio. And Born to be Alive is such a significant song for me, which is the reason I chose it at the outset here. And many of us will have those songs that have that emotional connection when we listen to. And never have those words been more impactful to me, born to be alive, when you're in the midst of experience loss, grief, overwhelmment, and tragedy, as many other people, and maybe some of you listening, are in the midst of yourself. So today I've actually dedicated this program to the topic of loss, and I welcome those that may have some questions that would like to join in a live chat, to simply connect at w4cy.com and click on the live chat and ask your questions. Now, my background, for those that don't know me, you've obviously picked up that I am Australian. That is correct. And my former lives, I like to say, have been in investigations and law enforcement for over 16 years, as well as a rehabilitation specialist. I became an author. I've written many different books, and much of my content and material can be seen at kickbuttwithonly1t.com.au. My purpose and passion today is promoting the best in people to live the best life on purpose, intentionally. But if you didn't know that you'd made a choice of your intentions heading towards feeling good or feeling bad, you're not going to know which way you're actually heading in life. And today, as I said, with that message of overcoming the feelings of loss, because loss itself, when it's occurred, we don't overcome the loss, be it a physical loss, be it a financial loss, be it an emotional loss. That's very, very real and very, very felt. And people will say, oh, it's all in your head. And, you know, that's a lousy place for it to be, because we don't escape our thoughts, just like we can't outrun our legs. So when it's in our head, that's not a great start. And it makes it even worse when it hits at our heart, because our heart is 5,000 times more powerful electromagnetically than our brain. As we've seen many people, head smarts becomes really dumb in a matter of an instant as soon as emotions factor into the game. For example, you know, you only see it in road rage. You can see the smartest people do the dumbest things just because they've been inspired by their emotions in that instant. And one thing as human beings that we all have in common is at some stage of your life, you will experience loss, be it status, be it in career, be it in your well-being. Whatever experience or reality that you have, it's something we're all going to go through. And myself personally, I can tell you my first book I wrote, called The Art of Powerful Living, I actually wrote at the end of the book what age I was at the time, which I believe was early 30s. Going off memory, I'm a little bit past that now. And no, that's not a sign of any dementia or senility setting in. It's just a life well lived and lots of experiences along the way that it's too filled up. But in that book, I mentioned that I stopped counting the loss of loved ones after I hit the benchmark of 20. And that was family and friends at a very young age. And I share this so that people are aware it's not something I just do professionally, help to aid and assist in grief and overwhelmment. I've been to Aceh, Banda Aceh, which is in Indonesia, after the tsunami, Boxing Day tsunami of 2006. and 2006, 2004, going off memory, where over 200,000 lives had been lost in an instant to provide trauma therapy. And that's a hell of a lot of trauma therapy to be provided at very short notice. So I have professional and personal experience in this regard. So I welcome those that would like to join in the chat and ask a particular question if they feel stuck in their life and have difficulty moving past that point of loss. Now, for myself at that young age, when I wrote that first book, The Art of Powerful Living, and I shared how many lives had already passed from my life, the one thing that shattered me the most is I didn't understand how the world continued as if everything was completely normal, because nothing in my world was normal. My world was completely changed. And an early loss, one of my best friends from childhood passed unexpectedly from an epilepsy attack. And on the day I discovered the news, I was sitting on my front veranda and watching the world pass me by. And I was not understanding how everyone still had jobs to go to. Things still had to be done. Didn't everything just stop in its tracks when you're in the midst of loss? Because it had for me. And I was watching happy, smiling faces walk past me. And I was just not connected. I was observing all that was going on around me and feeling great pain. Now, the very next day, to fill you in on the story, is that I'd organized previously, now this is back in before 2000, to go with a girlfriend to a psychic expo that was happening in the area. And I wanted to go and meet with the psychic and have a reading. And this was before I'd been informed of my girlfriend Lynette's passing. And I thought the next day when my girlfriend showed up, I thought, yes, I'm definitely going to go to this. I feel fantastic. I can't believe how good I feel. And I got to be honest, I truly thought that I'd finally lost the plot. I'd been a cop for many years at this point in time. You know, I'd experienced so many incidents and scenarios, and we learned to laugh and lighten up pretty quickly in order to release this mental load, because you can't take on everyone else's burdens. It doesn't lighten the load for them. It only overwhelms yourself. And I thought, at long last, I've probably snapped. The way we call it in Australia is gone round the bend, lost the plot. You know, was one sandwich short of a picnic hamper. And I truly thought that's where I was at. Now, as my girlfriend arrived and discovered that I had, you know, only just learnt the news of my girlfriend's passing the day before, she was understandably quite upset and said, look, we don't have to go to this, you know, psychic expo. I understand. And I said, no, I want to go. And I did. And when I sat down with the reader, the first thing she did was grab pen and paper, and she said, oh my God, I don't know what's happened to you, but I have to draw this. And she drew the most beautiful golden light. She said, I've never seen a person walk in surrounded with so many angels. Now, I don't know whether you believe in angels or not. And at that time as a cop, I can say I was very well grounded in reality. So I didn't really give this a lot of credibility at the time. However, when she drew that there was so much golden light surrounding me, and she said, I don't know what's happened, but you must be feeling so euphoric. And euphoric was the correct word, because that is exactly what I was feeling at the time. Why I thought I was crazy, because here's my girlfriend who's dead and I'm feeling fantastic about it. That has to be the definition of crazy. As it turns out, that was the introduction to a different world that exists within the world that we do live in, a world that we generally don't see and experience with our eyes and feel with our fingers. It's one we experience and feel and recognize and identify with our heart. It's a different language. You know, no one needs words to express what love is. It's when you have that feeling, you know whether you love or not. No other person is going to tell you what that feeling is or experience it or understand it or know it for you. You know it personally yourself. And the same as with grief and overwhelmment. No one's going to tell you when you're done, when it's time to move on, when you're ready to let go. That's up to each individual. We want to make things in our world one size fits all. Now, there is no, and especially I'm really little, so you wouldn't want my size to start with if you're a lot bigger, that's got to fit you. There's no one-upmanship on grief or overwhelmment or experiences. Pain is pain. Hurt is hurt. And hurt people hurt people. So it is my own vested interest to help people to understand just what they're operating on, their own operational system. And as we learn and understand this more, we drive ourselves better. We make use of ourselves better. We live our lives better. We experience more fulfillment and contentment, and those moments of enjoyment and ecstasy and euphoria connect to more moments. And since our life is composed of many, many moments, the more of them that I can make memorable and measurable as a means that matters to me, the better feeling life I live. And now let's face it, people, we only do stuff because of the feeling that doing that stuff gives to us. If something feels lousy, like sticking your hand in a blender, I don't think you're going to be doing that too many times. And I'm laughing as I'm sitting here thinking, well, hang on, Rosie, you just burnt your fingers the other day moving that pot of rice off the stove to the sink. And then I did it again this morning as I knocked my coffee cup over my fingers yet again. So apparently I'm a bit of a slow learner. I didn't get the message the first time that hot stuff will burn me. I had to do it the second time. And that is an automatic response with a lot of human beings. Often we don't understand quickly enough how things are hurting us. And so we actually grab and take hold of these things and righteously claim them as noble or fitting for us and all that we deserve. Now, another true story, when my mother passed away, which is when my world was totally and completely rocked, and I was only 28 years of age at the time. And my mother, only days before, had baked a beautiful vanilla cake, which she did on a weekly basis for my father to enjoy. And my mother and father had had one of those relationships that as a child I described as tumultuous and with some domestic violence. But now as an adult, looking back, I have a different perspective, that there was a long enduring love that did exist between them, expressed the best way that they both knew how. And my mother has only days before the day before she collapsed, which was known as Anzac Day here in Australia, and went into a coma of which she didn't recover from 5 days later when she eventually passed. This vanilla cake sat pride and place within our household, my father's household. And my mother unknowingly, or was it unknowingly, baked this cake. Instead of using sugar, she used cupfuls of salt. And my mother had baked this cake for some 30 plus years. So it's almost ironic that before she unknowingly passed, her last cake that she baked for her husband and partner of 40 plus years that had much more strife was a cake filled with salt. And more or less as penance, my father sat down at the kitchen table each day and ate a piece of this cake until every morsel of it was completely finished, feeling that this was the least that he actually deserved in his loved one no longer being present. And I see many other people that have experienced the loss of loved ones that now don't feel it's their right to laugh anymore, don't enjoy any of the things that they enjoyed before because they're on their own doing it. Now, I can guarantee you that those that have passed, and we started with that song Born to Be Alive, and that's what we're really here to do. We're here to live our own lives as fully as we genuinely and authentically can within each individual skill set that we have. So just for this moment, and if you're driving, please don't do this exercise, but everyone else, if you're sitting on public transport and you're listening, or you're at home in the comfort of your own home, if you're waiting in a queue, just for this moment, just close your eyes. And as you close your eyes, I want you to realize that right now, this feeling is as dead as you will ever be. That's it. That's as dead as you're ever going to be. So for those thinking that, okay, there's, the pearly gates, there's all to come, there's so much euphoria and many other experiences, more than likely. And I've had my own near-death experience, but I'm not going into that in today's radio program. However, what I want you to understand is that you are more than your body and your brain. There is so much more of you that is not contained within a bag of bones and flesh. There is much more of you that you connect to, and it's not via the electrical impulses of your brain. It is through that electromagnetic frequency that you have at the core of your being, your own heart source. Your own heart lets you know if your thoughts feel good. They let you know if your actions feel good. They let you know every day as an eternal indicator if what you're doing is working for you or working against you. So that's all our feelings are. Many of the masters and the sages through the ages have all said, your thoughts create your reality. However, from our thoughts create feeling states. And those feeling states lead us to more of what we want or more of what we don't want. For example, in those road rage instances where smart people became dumb within an instant, their thoughts weren't thoughts of feelings of relief or feelings that made them feel good or feelings that mattered. Those thoughts were ones of rage, of frustration, of born out in an instant with an outlet that was immediate that they acted upon. So the more we learn to connect with our hearts, the more we learn to develop a sense of relief, which is most important when we're talking about chronic pain, suffering, difficulty, and overwhelmment. But then from that feeling of relief, we can reach for a feeling of freedom. We realize that we can choose to think any thought whatsoever. And every single week on this program, I have selected specifically on Until Now a card from the Esther Hicks Abundance Pack that sums up my feelings and my intentions for the program. And today, so perfectly, the card that I drew, and Esther Hicks, by the way, channels an energy, a conglomerate, I should say, of energies, with the title of Abraham, that shares much timeless wisdom and information for us to live on purpose and with passion at this point in time. So I enjoy many of the sharings. She's not the only source I listen to, but one that's very practical. And this card today says, I can deliberately choose to feel better now. Well, who would have thought? People would say, no, Rosie, I can't choose to deliberately feel better. You don't know what I'm going through. I've just lost. And then they'll go through listing whatever it is they've lost, the amount of money that they've lost, their limb that they've lost, their loved one that's walked out on them after 25 or 30 years of marriage, their status within their career that they held for 30 years that now, they're doing something different that no longer has that level of recognition. There are many varying states of being, and we can constantly transition from one to another to another to another. Life is not about static or being still. It is flow at all times. We have feelings flowing through us. We have emotions flowing through us. We are eternally changing and mixing it up at all times. And with every feeling that flows through our I'll call it human construct, for want of a better word, carries with it information. And that information can come in chemical forms, such as neuropeptides, which sends a message throughout all of your being what to do and where. And it's picked up by many different messenger cells within the nervous system and transmitted to varying parts of the body. And we create states. Some states feel good, some states feel lousy. And it's taken us a long time to make that connection between emotional well-being and physical well-being, because many people like to divorce themselves from their feelings. They like to control their minds and think, I'm controlling my reality through controlling my mind. I'll fetter down and close off my heart and I'm in control. Well, as I mentioned before, your heart is 50,000. Let that number sink in. 50,000 times more powerful at its largest measurement, and at its smallest measurement 5,000 times, which is still a huge magnification of what the brain's electromagnetic output is. So let's not get caught up. The brain is phenomenal as it is. However, it's still a body bit, it's still an organ, it's still a part of your being. There is much more to you that we still don't understand, but we do understand on a simple term whether we feel good or whether we feel bad. And as I said, when I experienced the death of my girlfriend Lynette, I felt sensational. I was told the angels had been brought in. Either way, it was an introduction for me to connect at that time to my heart and to understand the power of my heart and to understand that anytime I shut it down, and we have a lot of people in this planet today shutting down their hearts. And one of my dear friends only passed away on Friday, hence why I've taken this topic of loss. And he's like a big brother figure to me in my life that I've known since 14, suffered a heart attack. And first symptom in 30% of cases of a heart attack is sudden death. So it's not like you get a lot of warning then to make a change, to head towards more thoughts and feelings that feel better, rather than continuing on the same probable pathway of thoughts and feelings that feel really lousy. And for him, I know that there were lots of thoughts that were feeling really lousy because there were lots of events and circumstances at the time that he was giving his energy to that wasn't conducive to feeling better. Now, many of us have circumstances and events occurring within our life that can often feel lousy, often feel miserable, often feel terrible. And the more that we tune into them, focus on them, reiterate them, repeat them, it doesn't get feeling any better. And it slows down our vibration. It becomes heavy. It becomes hard. You know, you don't have to be Einstein to work this stuff out. You know every second of the day actually how you're feeling. You can tap in every second of the day to how you're feeling. And if you're not feeling that you've reached that level of depression and apathy, well, then you've reached a level of realism and a level of perception that is really stuck in a cage of reality. Now, it doesn't mean that that's permanent. It just means that right now you've got a lot more work to do than someone who's feeling contentment, someone who is feeling at a faster flying energy of frequency that's lighter, that's freer, that's more peaceful, than it's more easy. So that's the only difference. One represents a lot more effort on our part. And again, it's well worth it. If you aren't aware that you are the best investment that you're ever going to get this life, well, then you don't know a good deal when you get one. And I learned at an early age that, again, life is exactly that what I'm bringing to it, what I'm paying attention to, how I'm feeling about it. So I use a really simple recipe to understand that my thoughts lead to my feelings. Those repeated thoughts and feelings lead to my beliefs. And that's my view and perception of the world, the window through which I view the world and my judgments that I make. Now, I'm very, as an Aussie, I've not only lived in different states, I've also lived in other countries. And I've traveled to many, many countries around the globe. I've met different people. I used to write for a magazine that went out to 66,000 entrepreneurs globally. And I did this because I love experiencing different cultures and different lives and hearing the many different stories. I've sat with the Aboriginal elders here in Australia. I've sat with the Hopi Indians out in Arizona. I'm interested in the differing perspectives that people have to share of where they've learnt their wisdoms and their thoughts and their experiences that help them transition from one state of being to another. And the people I listen to the most are those people who feel unlimited in their life, who are unstoppable in their energy because they have access to the same universal energy that every single one of us walking the planet has. But how is it that they're able to utilize it so much better? And the one thing I've found in common with those people that are able to move forward really quickly from most difficulties and most challenges and most experiences of loss is the fact that they're aware that from the unseen is where the seen emerges. So, for example, you don't see a feeling of love. You feel it, but then after you feel it, you might observe an action of love. For example, when I look at my son, for me, he will always brighten any day simply by looking at him, same as watching puppies play and kittens tumble over each other. And any of these the footage that we've got available at our fingertips on YouTube of, crazy companions in animal form, they delight the senses, and it's a visual format in order to uplift us. And as soon as we're uplifted, we're able to make better choices and better decisions. So if in doubt, don't. When you're in a state of loss is the worst time to be making life decisions that impact you for life. At that time, our point of power is in the now by taking a breather or a break or a rest, a reprieve, anything that gives you relief in the minute in order to find a better feeling. And when you find a better feeling, to hook that feeling to another feeling, to another thought that feels a little bit better. So for example, after finding out about my friend's passing on the Friday, I was obviously quite upset and distressed. And on the Saturday, my first thoughts were imagining him and his laughter and his smile and his grin. And that's exactly how this person was in life. And as I said, we're never truly dead. The most dead we are is a corporeal sense, and that is our physical body. So if we're much more than our body and our brains, that energy, that inspiration, that upliftment, that good humor, that goodwill, will, and well-being is eternal. And that bit sees and perceives far more than we currently do. And if you're thinking, Rosie, you're a little bit off the planet and you're a bit heavy here, I really don't get this. It's like, we don't need to get it. All we need to know is, are my thoughts leading to what I want, or are my thoughts leading to what I don't want? Okay, how do we know? It feels good or it doesn't feel good. So the only weight loss plan that I believe in is the one that gets rid of those heavy thoughts from your head. And again, you don't have to look too far around you before you start seeing the physical evidence of those heavy thoughts. People will walk with their shoulders slumped over. Their feet, you'll see it will be a shuffle. There's no spring in their gait. There's no lightness in their step. The lightness in their being is being exhausted because our energy is renewed and a vaster amount via our hearts than there is via our brains. And science is actually now even supporting us in this. It tells us that there are numerous experiments that have demonstrated that the signals the heart continuously sends to the brain influence the function of higher brain centers, which are all involved in perception, cognition, and emotional processing. So in addition to the extensive neural communication network linking the heart with the brain and body, the heart also communicates information to the brain and throughout the body via electromagnetic field interactions. So the heart generates the body's most powerful and most extensive rhythmic electromagnetic field. We can't ignore our heart's input anymore, because if you do, it's to your own detriment. If we let the head rule the heart, we automatically weaken our system. We're not designed that way. Where feelings flow, energy goes. Where feeling stops and stagnates, so too does our life force. And that's the worst part of loss. It's, where does our loving feelings have to go? And that's what happens when you lose a partner, when you lose a loved one. There's such a bank of love that is overflowing that it feels as if we haven't got somewhere for it to go. That's what anger, frustration, and rage is. It's the opposite energy spectrum of the love, ease, and well-being that we're used to. They're emotional indicators. They're not stay stuck in places. They're indicators that we're not designed to run without love. It's our fuel for optimal use of the human condition, so to speak. So how do we get back to feeling good? Seek that relief, seek that comedian, seek a pause, a timeout, a breather, meditation, anything that gives you that opportunity to become consciously aware. How am I feeling? Does it feel good? No, it doesn't. Okay, what's a better feeling thought? I'm the one thinking my thoughts. No one else is thinking them for me. This is the opportunity to play in space. It's your own mental space. It's not anyone else's mental space. No one else puts that input in there. This is your own private domain, and it's your own heaven on earth or hell on earth. And this is where you truly are God made manifest. You bring the beauty, you bring the wisdom, you bring the purity, you bring the light, you bring your own perception. That's your reception. It's how you're receiving it and how you're retransmitting it, how you're sending it back out. Every night when you go to sleep, are they thoughts that relax and allow you to just appreciate those brief moments before you fall asleep? Or are you tossing and turning? Are you marinated in stress, in distress? And I say marinating because we soak ourselves up in it hour after hour after hour after hour, and it seeps in. That stuff gets in. You know, it's like being around radiation. You can't say, oh, I can't see it, I can't feel it, therefore it doesn't exist. Of course it exists. You find out after the fact how it's impacted and affected you. And it's the same with understanding about our heart energy, and to know if something is good or not good for you when you're really at a heavy, heavy state. I learned this technique many, many years ago, and I use it when I'm caught up emotionally, when I'm not able to think clear. And all of us know when we get in those positions and states. Simply place both your hands, if you have both hands, that's your good fortune. Place them both over your heart. And as you connect with your heart, close down your eyes. And the only reason we're closing down our eyes is because we're seeking to cut off our conscious senses, our conscious interaction. And as we move into this state, a feeling state of intentionally connecting with our heart and wanting to know what our heart has to say to us, we can simply then, as we're standing with your feet probably only a few inches apart, so that you're standing nicely balanced on both feet, think the question of what you want to know an answer to that you don't have clarity on. So if you think a question that has a yes no answer, make it really simple, make it really specific. Repeat the question in your mind. You can say it out loud if you're on your own, or just think it in your mind. And as your hands are over your heart, your body will speak to you. It will fall either forwards or backwards or stagger side to side. Now, if it falls forwards, that's an indicator that it's moving you forward within your life. So that would be a yes answer. That's your heart acknowledging and accepting and appreciating what you've shared. If you fall backwards, take that as a pretty clear indicator that it's not going to lead you in the direction that most of us say that we want, which is happiness, ease, feeling good, and success. If it's going side to side, that you feel your body wobbling, it may be that you just need more clarity around your question. You need to be more specific in your asking. But learn to connect to your heart. It is one of the most powerful tools, far more powerful than your brain, that most of us have not been educated in the use and understanding of. Now, for those that are interested in more passion, more productivity, more positivity, there's loads more information at www.kickbutt.com.au. So that's getting rid of those bloody useless thoughts in your head, those bloody thoughts, useless thoughts that will often stop us dead instead of let us flowing freely within our own life. So you're listening to W4CY Radio. If you have a question, join in at w4cy.com and you can click on the join the chat live. You're listening to Until Now with Rosie Pica, and ask that question and I'll come to an answer. Now, one of the things people like to know about is, okay, well, I've been feeling in this flat state for a long, long time. You know, it's become almost chronic. How do I feel better from this state? Okay, well, if you've been in that state for a long, long time, some people are of the mindset that, well, it's going to take you a long, long time to move out of it. I don't believe in that mindset, because I have seen those people that have lost it all and been totally bereft in the most horrific of circumstances be changed in a nanosecond. A nanosecond that they've brought their thoughts and their whole presence of mind and their heart into the now. Now is the most powerful and potent moment that exists for every one of us. As our thoughts are caught up in the past over what we have no control over, we lose ourselves and we feel at the mercy of circumstances, because that's not an area we can make changes with. When we're caught up with thoughts of what's going to happen in the future and our imaginings are dire, in that instance, again, we feel disempowered. The only point of power is in the present. It's where we're at right now. And as we become aware of that unfolding, we then become aware, well, everything that's common, everything occurring in my life is me. So whether it feels good or it feels bad, it starts and it ends with me. So with my thoughts, I understand that my thoughts release a feeling. That feeling lets me know, am I heading more towards what I do want or what I don't want? And I use a 4-step process in order to uplift from even the worst, most chronic, stuck places. And the best time to do it is just before you go to sleep at night. It's, for many of us, just about the only time we have in a busy, rushed, and hectic day. And that's to keep pen and paper nearby the bed and simply spend 5 minutes, work up to about 15 minutes of writing what it is that you have appreciated through the day. Now, when people are feeling really flat, they're challenged to find something to appreciate. And that's where I say, well, for starters, it's appreciate the breath. And they will go, well, Rose, I really don't want to be breathing right now. I really couldn't care if I am or not. Well, then I go, well, for the next thing, appreciate that you're in a place where you can be on your own privately. If you can't be on your own privately, appreciate that you have got feet that you can still stand on, or you've got a mind that you can still consciously think with. You know, I can't determine what your first thought is going to be that starts you on your path to some appreciation. You are the only one, the thinker is the only one who will determine what that thought will be for themselves. Because my thought that gets me onto a cycle of appreciation can be completely different to someone else, depending on their circumstances. So again, it's not one size fits all. It's a matter of having that intention. Once you have that intention that you intend to find appreciation and you are putting your attention onto finding appreciation, the appreciation will come. Intention is the start point. It's from everything internal that we are setting a focus point. And as we set that focus point, that I am looking for something to appreciate, and it might be the fact that the person is used to complaining far more than appreciating. And you'll know people like this within your own life. You could probably prattle off a list of names right at the instant. And when you're around people who are complaining and finding all that's terrible about things, it starts to feel heavy. It starts to feel draining. It is not uplifting. And the reason why is it goes straight to our heart. It lets us know this is not life enhancing. This is life degrading. This is running my energy down. So it's not just our own, it's those around us that are impacted and affected by it. So whereas appreciation has the opposite, it does exactly the opposite. It runs our energy up. It enhances our energy. It empowers us. And once we start to think one thought that feels a little bit better than where we're at, we don't have to go for great, joyous, wonderful thoughts just yet, jumping up and down, going, yeehaw, life is sensational. It's going for simple things, as in, well, that thought felt a little bit better than the last one. It's not quite as lousy as it was before. That's starting to find things that you can appreciate. As we spend 5 minutes appreciating, the next day you might get a little bit more, the next day a bit more and a little bit more until you can work up to that 15 minutes. And then your hand's just running away with you as the weeks and time passes by. We start to appreciate the bed that we have to lay on, the fact that we have fresh air to breathe, the fact that we have covers we can put over our heads if the day should be so, the fact that we have opportunities to direct our thoughts and the intention of where our thoughts are going to be, the fact that we can intend to to look for things that feel better. And once we can appreciate, the next key step is to be able to accentuate, play it up as much as possible. If you finally found one thing that you feel good about, milk it to the absolute max. And I'm laughing at the word milk at the moment because it was only yesterday I actually, a girlfriend was kindly redoing my hair, and as she did it, a big blob of bleach fell into my eye. So it was a nice chemical burn that, fortunately for me, I was right near the shower, right near the tap, so I was able to rinse out my eye very quickly, and with a syringe of some nice cold milk that we had on hand, was able to douse my eye literally in a lot of cold milk, which stemmed the chemical burn so quickly that by the time I got to the eye doctor, despite there being extensive damage in the lower eye, none of my iris was actually affected. And I had an appointment again this morning to go back for them to have a look at. And as I went back this morning, after spending a whole night appreciating the beauty of both my eyes, the wonder of both my eyes, the amazement of my eyes, the fact of how much input and information they receive on a daily basis and are able to disseminate and differentiate and magnify and have clarity. There was just so much about my eyes that I absolutely adored and loved and was in awe and wonder about, that it was no surprise whatsoever when I went back this morning and the same eye doctor told me how remarkable my eye recovery injury, the injury was now barely there. And again, our energy states leads to our body states. Our issues get in our tissues. I could have bemoaned the fact of how painful it was, how much this chemical burn hurt, and then told everyone that I ran into all the dramas, all the problems, why my eye was all gunky and red, and issue after issue after issue, and ran that energy. That was not my choice, because I've been educated and have learnt over many, many years the power of our thoughts coupled with our feelings creates a feeling state within us, and that feeling state within us is all powerful. It is from the unseen. The unseen is where my beautiful, perfect, healthy I exist. That's from that unreal is what we bring down to be manifest, to be made real. And I do that by focus on the ideal. The I, what I talk about is what I bring into the deal that I have in this lifetime, how I'm currently living my life, what I'm talking about over and over again. I'm not complaining. I was appreciating and I was accentuating. So I chose to accentuate what I did not yet have. And people misunderstand that. They think, oh, only accentuate what you do have. No, you can accentuate what you don't have so long as you feel good about it. If I accentuated what I didn't have and felt lousy about it, that was an indicator, that feeling straight away to tell me that it's not working for me. It's leading me to more of what I don't want, which was going to be a painful eye. So my accentuating and talking it up on what wasn't yet real, but soon became real, in a matter of time, is where now today I'm congratulating myself. And that's the next key step in this process, is to recognize and go, oh, I did that. I had an idea. And from that idea, I made my ideal. And that ideal goes up or it goes down. And I use up and down as an indicator of how I feel. So if my idea goes up, it is me living my ideal. I'm realizing what is unlimited, what is unstoppable. I'm utilizing universal energy through the eye, well, literally, two eyes there, the eye of me being and the eye that is in my head. So our idea can also run us down if we focus on poor me, woe is me, terrible is me being I. That ideal is not one that we would want to give to, our best friend. It's not what we would want to pass on to loved ones. It feels lousy, and it feels lousy because we've dialed up the drama and we've dialed down the appreciation. So at any time, this window swings both ways. It's a doorway to, making the unseen seen, or the seen that is unwanted unseen. Depending on your point of focus, if you can find the time to appreciate all that you have and all that you enjoy to have, if you can accentuate and make real all that is your perfect ideal, and then congratulate yourself on what you have done, or as I say, I did that, on what I have done, then you're able to sit in that reflection and meditate. And as you meditate, you allow thoughts to leave and just focus on a feeling, and a feeling of pure gratitude, appreciation is pure love that you are giving to yourself, that you are immortal in more ways than you've ever understood, that you are impossible. Because people will say that's just not possible. That can't be done. That's like, I love being impossible, because impossible is just the word broken up. I'm possible. That's what I bring into any equation in life. I bring me into it. And in order to be the butterfly, you must give up the life of a caterpillar. You cannot keep crawling and expect to be flying. They're two different states, completely different. If you're speaking on have not, then you are not in the state and the energy of having. Really, really simple and straightforward. It is not rocket science here. Understand that electrical impulse, 40 to 60 times stronger of your heart than your head, that electromagnetically is anywhere from 5 to 50,000 times stronger. That is the energy you are using to rule your world, what you bring to any equation. Your habits, your patterns makes your probability pathways. One feels good, one doesn't feel good. I seek to spend more time and space in the areas that do feel good instead of those that don't. Now, one of my, I present around the globe as well, and do keynote presentations. And I remember speaking at a convention that dealt with a lot of the elderly patients and in care homes. And at the time, the topic again was on overwhelmment and grief and loss. And I said, well, you know, you must realize if the best of us can get it wrong, then you've got to let the rest of us have a little bit of leeway. And I told this story of there was this beautiful little pussycat, and this little pussycat loved its home. It had a great big plump fat cushion right in front of a fireplace, and every afternoon when the fire was lit, it would go over to that cushion and it would plump it all up with its paws and be purring away as it would snuggle down by the warmth of the fire, and it had an absolutely magnificent life. And anyway, this poor pussycat one day has kicked the bucket, as we say in Australia, or passed the pearly gates. And as it's passed the pearly gates, it's met with the God Almighty. And God Almighty has said, well, welcome to our kingdom. Welcome, you know, you now permitted to pass the pearly gates. Let me know if there's anything I can do to make your stay more welcome. So the cat goes into the pearly gates, and the cat on earth, its favorite food had been mice. And anyway, during the course of his stay, the mice on earth, because he was no longer there, had a field day, and they had ran around all over the place and had managed to outrun this lazy cat that liked to stay sleeping in front of the fireplace. But now a new one had moved in, and it was much faster than this old one, and it caught all these mice, and of course they became dinner, and soon the mice were knocking at the pearly gates. And the Almighty's there saying, yes, you are more than welcome. You can pass the pearly gates. If there's anything you should need, let us know. And the mice said, oh, most definitely. Like, we got caught up there on earth. You know, we just weren't fast enough. If you can help us be a little bit faster, we'll love that. Poof, in an instant, there were these little rollerblades there on all the mice's feet. And off they zipped away super fast. Anyway, another week passes, and the Almighty is catching up with the pussycat, who's there, you know, his own big plump cushion again, right in front of the fire. And Almighty stops by and checks in on the cat and says, how's things doing? And the cat's like, oh, it is perfect. This place is heavenly and to die for. I just can't believe it. He said, but your piece de resistance, the creme de la creme, the absolute most sensational, top it off, is those little meals on wheels you've been sending over. So if we understand that the Almighty, and obviously it's not the real Almighty, can mess it up, then so too we ourselves should give ourselves a little bit of leeway and say that we don't always get it right, and we're not always on par with what's happening. But if we listen to our feelings and learn to tune in and learn to dial up our appreciation, we will soon be on our way. Now, I have, just to close, sharing the message that we have from Abraham. Not only does the thought you are choosing right now attract the new thought and the next, and so on, it also provides the basis of your alignment with your inner being. As you consistently and deliberately think and speak more of what you do want and less of what you do not want, you will find yourself more often in alignment with the pure positive essence of your own source. And under these conditions, your life will be extremely pleasing to you. Until next week, I wish you all an extremely pleasing life and look forward to tuning in next week on Until Now with Rosie Pica.